how does one deal with stress, right? So many people, when they get stressed out, when life gets hard, they kind of will turn to vices. They'll turn to things that make them feel good temporarily, externally. But in all reality, what I've learned from these last couple weeks of probably being like the most stressed out in a good way I've ever been in my life, honestly. I think I've come to the conclusion and developed this mindset that was important for me to come across, because I think as stress gets higher and higher, as I scale my business more and more, and as things come up more and more with social media and, maybe future breakups or maybe even prep, if I can take this mindset into my next prep, I think I will be very, very, very successful at dealing and managing with stress, because stress can either break you or it can make you, right? Pressure is a privilege. Pressure creates diamonds, and pressure will either cause individuals to crumble and give into vices and fall apart and quit and not work as hard, or it will shape you into the man you need to become and into the purpose that you need. And so I just want to give you guys kind of an update of what's been going on behind the scenes with a few different things. Not because I need anyone to feel sorry for me, or not because I feel sorry for myself. That's a whole different topic. One thing you cannot do as a man is ever feel sorry for yourself. If you feel sorry for yourself, you've lost. You've lost, and you will not continue to progress and, become what you need to become if you just crumble and start feeling sorry for yourself in any form of adversity. Right. The point is, everybody just highlights the positives on social media, and no one talks about the negatives that they go through. So if any of you guys are going through similar things, you guys aren't alone. Over the past couple weeks, I have been the most stressed out I've ever been. Simply, first, it kind of all started with me getting banned by my payment processor, again, for the second time, Stripe. And the reason this brought so much stress is because there's over $3,000 frozen in there that I no longer have access to. The stress of finding a new payment processor, sending all the links out to clients, keeping track of, each individual client and their bill date and all this financial stuff. But the majority of the stress basically came from, losing, over $3,000 that was in there when my account was frozen due to, them not wanting to support my, high risk online business. But that's a different topic. So that, putting, what would have been about doing 11 different shows as a coach within 6 weeks and prepping clients for a show in the last couple of weeks is very, very stressful for me, right? I'm constantly thinking about what I could do here, what I could do there, making the right decision, dialing in the clients, right? There's a lot more communication that goes on. And when you're putting, about 11 clients on stage over 6 weeks, it is a lot. And I always want to make the right decisions, as literally every single change I could make, daily in their check-ins or daily if it's peak week or time for them to peak or something like that, has an effect to their physique. So I have to make the right decision, and I put so much effort into my coaching. I stress over it all the time. I'm constantly thinking about what I should do with this client, what I should do with that client, and thinking through different scenarios. So there's the stress of that, which I love. It's a privilege to be able to put all these guys on stage, but it's just a lot going on, right? I don't know if you guys have noticed, I've been posting less reels and TikToks and maybe even YouTube videos, still trying to get them out, but just because, I have to have my full focus, and the clients that I'm putting on stage are the first priority. So that's a good stressor, but that just adds to this overwhelming, entire stress. And then there's also the stress with, my house. It's good stress as well because, thankfully I have new roommates that are moving in, but my old roommates just moved out. Boom, got 2 new roommates moving in. So all that moving and then, dealing with the legality of, roommates and contracts and, exact dates they need to move in, and, helping people move out is a lot of stress as well. But the biggest stress really has been today, honestly. Today, it just hit me like a truck, and, anxiety hits and stress hits because I had to, me and my athlete, one of my athletes had to pull out of a show due to him having some health issues and like allergic reactions to foods he's been, eating like last week, right? All of a sudden, just having extreme allergic reactions to food. So, we had to pull him out of a show, or out of two shows technically, which was a lot of stress. Because obviously, we're both sad that he's already competed once, but we're both sad that we didn't get to, compete in these next two shows. It would have been an NPC natural show, and then, and then nationals right after, which could have been huge, both for him and as an athlete, which he has a super bright future, but also. And yes, so there's stress from that, and being sad about having to pull out from two shows that we worked 6 months for, and we were literally supposed to leave tomorrow. But the main thing that just made me stressed out about that is I care so deeply for my athletes, and I don't ever want them to have a bad first prep experience where they don't ever want to prep again or bodybuild again. One of my favorite things to do as a coach is help people fall in love with natural bodybuilding like how I love it, and have people enjoy their preps. And so, when someone is having, health issues and reactions, and we have to pull out a prep because of it, it just really stresses me out, because I almost feel the stress for them, like passionate for them, and sad for them that they have to, pull out of a show that they worked so hard for, but also just for the experience they had, right? It's just hard when you're trying to do a sport and you just have to suffer so much like that, and, go through health issues and stuff like that. So I feel like that really, really stressed me out today, and that whole situation. I won't go too much into it, but right, just not wanting someone to ever have to go through that and have to make that decision, and be so miserable that they just have to pull the plug. So that just stressed me out. And anyway, that was stressing me out so much today. And I had a lot of work to do, right? I'm currently running the Peak 90 University mentorship with someone. That's pretty hands-on. And then I have client check-ins, I have clients in prep, I have another client that competes Saturday, across the country as well. And so really dialing that in, and doing the check-ins I need to, setting up new clients. So I've onboarded like 3 new clients this week, and had a couple sales call today. So just when all this stuff gets thrown at you on top of the majority of the stressful situation, right? Going through all these health issues, and last minute pulling the plug on a prep, it just all kind of compiled on each other and just like exploded. And I have never been so overwhelmed with so much stress. And then the whole payment processor thing, that's pretty recent. I'm still in emails and talks, and the whole like legality of the whole situation, with the support and all that stuff. And I was answering texts and emails today, and trying to post on social media, answering messages from other clients, doing check-ins. And anyway, all this exploded. Felt like just a wall of stress crushed me, right? And so what do you do in that situation? In that situation where I felt like I was going to break, where I felt so stressed out. I went to dinner with my parents tonight, and my mom, as soon as she saw me walk in the restaurant, she was like, "What is wrong? You look so stressed out." She could tell instantly, like the stress was just radiating from my body today. And I came to the realization, I think my good friend who's a really strong Christian, Winston, kind of helped me come to this realization today, that nothing in this life should ever cause you to break, cause you to give up, and cause you to crumble, because it is so temporary. There's nothing in this life that, truly matters like that, because there is an even greater life after this temporary earthly life in heaven, right? And, God works out everything to the good of those who love him. And eventually, I know that, this stressful situation will be all part of his plan, even if things don't go the way I necessarily wanted them to. And at the end of the day, it'll all be for a reason. Like, I think back to hard times in my life, like, maybe breakups and stuff like that, right? I know I'm like, now I'm actually so grateful for those, because I know I wouldn't be where I am bodybuilding and coaching and social media wise if I had a girlfriend, right? Being single and going through these breakups, right? God knew that I needed to have full focus on coaching, full focus on making a name for myself and my business, and full focus ahead on what I'm currently working on, like, right now, day to day. And I just know he knew I didn't have time to attend to a girlfriend, especially when it's the wrong one for me, especially, one that's not good for me. So I'm just really having that perspective that, no matter when stress hits you like a truck, when things don't go your way, it's always going to work out for a greater purpose, even if it's not right now. Maybe it's a few weeks from now, maybe it's a few months from now, maybe it's this mindset I needed to unlock for my next prep. But really, the only way to deal with stress, it's not going to the gym and having a crazy workout, distracting yourself in the tunnel vision like a lot of gym bros and bodybuilders like to do. It's not, any type of drug or alcohol that most people turn to make you feel better. It's not any type of lust or, pornography or cheap free dopamine, going and cheating on my diet and binging on, I don't know, sweets or sugar or something like that to make me feel better. Stress eating, a lot of people struggle with. I myself have done that 100% back in the day when I was younger. And it's not any of those things. It's not drowning yourself out in caffeine, which unfortunately I have been doing recently since I haven't been getting good sleep. Stress kills your sleep, let me tell you guys. I'm like sleeping like 6-7 hours a night, these last couple weeks. Just constantly overthinking things. I just need to learn to turn my brain off. But the only way to cope with stress and realize that it's gonna be okay because God has a plan for you is to honestly just cast all your stress, anxieties on God and come to him about it, and pray, and cast it all on him and trust him. And you can't just say, okay, I'm trusting God and all my stress is going to go away. You genuinely need to talk to him and genuinely need to pray to him, and that is the only way that I have truly been able to feel peace, when in certain stressful times. Because it's easy to feel on top of the world when business is good, when life is good, when having a lot of good memories, traveling, making money, views are good on social media, right? It's easy to be happy then. And it's very easy to, forget about God. But when times are stressful, you have to not just say, hey, I'm just going to trust God and not think about it. You need to adapt to the stress, come up with solutions, attack it head on, and go to God and pray about it and cast everything on him. Because if you don't, it will eat you alive and you will crumble and you will turn to other things. You will feel demotivated and, maybe quit and not keep your momentum that keeps you propelling forward and progressing. You must, cast it on God and pray to him about it and ask him to help you deal with that stress. But with dealing with that stress comes taking action. Action alleviates anxiety. And if you do not take action, if you do not, actually take action to alleviate the anxiety of all the stress and adapt to the situation and still get things done, even when you're in a stressful environment, you will not go far. You will not go where you need to be to get to where you want to be. So you need to be able to learn that. And that is something I learned today and came to the conclusion of. And time again, like there's nothing that can, just magically take the stress away. You can't just wait days and days and be miserable. The instant fix to the stress, to overwhelming stress, isn't turning to anything. It's not turning to the gym. It's not having a sick lift and distracting your mind. It is simply turning to God and asking for help and humbling yourself before Him, and then standing up from that prayer and taking action and going to attack the problems that life has presented you with.